USA, USA, USA. It's that time of year.
Apparently, Saudi Arabia, they beat Argentina.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Well, it's already on the internet everywhere.
I got my USA. It's a women's jersey, but still out there supporting the USA. We got the World Cup going on. Hey, and we got Kim. Look at that.
You know, you find me. I had it at 11:45. I just didn't want Doug to be the only one who was late to this one time.
No, one time we should all be late. That would be honest. Really good.
Oh no, Chris will sweat like crazy.
Yeah, I'd have to talk more. That would be the end of the world for me.
So,
welcome,
Chris,
everyone.
I did want to tell you I did watch my first soccer game ever.
I could tell you texted me during it and you asked questions that suggested you had not been watching many before then.
I had no. It was fascinating with the 0-1-0 for like an hour and a half. So.
Yep. So,
were you drinking during it, Travis?
Oh man, it was the struggle was real. Let's put it that way.
So you don't yet understand why they call it the beautiful game. That's okay. We'll talk about
it. Real big education, like a lot of things, like federal grants for broadband mapping, and the World Cup all fall in the same category. I don't understand them.
Hey, Travis, I wanted to know, do you know who's going to apply for the BEAD money? I was just going to ask really quick.
I have no idea. My theory right now is 99.8% will go to the incumbents, which will be distributed to their shareholders. That's my theory.
We will be talking about that in a little bit. I'm Chris Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, and I am pleased to be joined by our regular crew of Doug Dawson from CCG. Welcome.
I still don't quite get it. It's the beautiful game, but I like it. So,
yeah. We got Kim McKinley from the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, but we should come up with a funnier word, like 3 letters or explanation for that.
Some kind of like nicknames. Wasn't I Broadband Face or something?
Oh yes.
Okay.
We could go back to that. I wouldn't want to say where are you today?
I'm in my office today.
Okay. I don't remember seeing this view of it before.
Oh, I switched my office around. You know, when you're in your office so much, you just have to rearrange it sometimes to make sure you.
So like every 6th time you're in your office, you rearrange it probably then? We got Travis Carter from USI Fiber. Welcome.
Mr. Mitchell. Hello, guys. Kim, nice glasses today. I see the red ones came out for the show.
Are they in celebration of USA?
No, they were a request.
They were a request. She got a fan request.
We have one fan, guys.
The fan asked.
Excellent.
I had to remember. See, but Chris told me that we could not take any more fan requests going forward because he doesn't want to be kicked off his own show.
Yes.
Yeah. We can't let them think they have too much power over us.
So you guys were in person, huh? How was the show?
It was good. Yeah, we were at the Digital Infrastructure Investment event that Drew Clark and Broadband Breakfast organized, and it is not available online, I don't think, unless you become a member, I think, over time. And it was good. I thought it was a lot of interesting conversations, some good folks there that Kim and I were able to hang out with. So I was just excited. Heather Gold was there, a friend of the show. So a lot of good folks were there, and it was a good time. Kind of intimate.
Nice.
It was like fewer than 100, right, Kim?
Yeah, it was a really good show. I think the chairs were a little hard, so they kept us awake.
The fact that people were still there in the afternoon with the worst chairs ever invented, a little uncomfortable in the butt. Yeah. And if you know Kim and Heather, there was a few inappropriate comments that were made along the way, which is one good reason to go to these events when Kim and Heather are going to be there.
They told us we couldn't sit next to each other. They told us,
they separated you, huh? And I like it.
So there was something that I wanted to bring up that it was we got a bunch of topics to talk about today. We got Mike Dunn with FiberRise will be on in a little while. FiberRise is a company focused on fiber optics, building it out to folks. They are doing interesting partnerships in multiple states, and they are planning to go after this money that the states will be distributing from the BEAD program. Ultimately, is my understanding. In the meantime, they're doing a lot of work to figure out how to make these these programs work for their business model. And I think Mike and I met at Nashville for Fiber Connect maybe, but it was sometime recently, and I was impressed with talking with him about it. And so I thought he might be a good guest to answer Travis's perennial question: who's going to go after this money? So we'll be talking about that. We're going to talk about the FCC map, the broadband labels, and then a couple of other things, including an interesting article, the coming end of the fiber boom, and it has to do with interest rates. So I had to include that because Travis loves talking about how this money stuff actually matters to some people somewhere. But I wanted to start off with something that really annoyed me, and just get the show started right. Kara Swisher, who I listened to her multiple shows, podcast. I think she does terrific interviews. She had on this guy, Dr. Doom, Nouriel Roubini, who is a statistician and economist, and has made a name for himself of predicting downturns in the economy previously, and the kind of person that you should listen to, even if you don't necessarily agree. Anyway, he talked about how 5G is so important. It's going to be in all the toasters coming up. And Kara was just nodding along and saying yes. And it just pisses me off, frankly, that I feel like people like them want to talk about this stuff with zero understanding of what they're talking about. Kara Swisher should know better. She should have people on that educate her about this stuff. And it's freaking ridiculous to think that toasters are going to have a 5G chip in them. Am I right or wrong?
You're completely right. They're going to have a Wi-Fi chip in them.
Why would they put that's what I'm saying.
Can you imagine having to buy a subscription to use your toaster?
Yeah, like who would do that?
Verizon and AT&T would gladly sell you a $5 a month subscription for that. Why would you?
Right. No, that's exactly the point.
5G is not going to be in anything.
Yeah,
people will not pay for what they can get from their Wi-Fi. No one in their right mind would pay for that.
6 years ago, I had this knockdown, drag-out telephone conversation with this very nice woman who was very concerned that radiation was poisoning all of us, and about the electronic waste that would be caused, that we all had to throw our TVs away around the time that we're living in right now, because we'd all have to get TVs that have 5G in them. And I was telling her, no, that's ridiculous. That's not going to happen. And she just assumed that I was an idiot. So
I have a question for you, Mr. Christopher Mitchell. Why are you so upset about this absurdity?
Because like people turn to Kara Swisher for like good analysis and discussions about this space in tech. And the fact that she just has no sense of the role that 5G plays, and like her and what's the other guy? The guy Scott. No, what's his name? I even enjoy him. They're on Pivot together. Oh, no one here listens to enough podcasts if you don't know who I'm talking about. Anyway, they are people that everyone listens to. Scott Galloway, Professor Scott Galloway, constantly talking about this stuff as though 5G is taking over the world. It's the most important stuff. And it's not. 5G is cool. It's going to make a difference. But fiber and Wi-Fi are what's going to be connecting most stuff in the near future. And the fact that nobody understands that suggests they don't have any sense of where this is going. So
well, here's something interesting fact for your next time, because big cable companies are now struggling to find a business case for 5G. Now, 6 years into it, they're trying to find a way that people actually pay them to use it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because no one's paying them for this stuff.
You don't
pay any extra to get any of this
it's
stuff.
It's for the toaster. This is what they did. They paid somebody to do a product placement on that podcast for the toaster.
Yes. Well, that was Verizon's original image, that every house would have a $10 subscription for their house and a $10 subscription for their car, so they get $20 a month out of every household. They haven't sold any of those. So
never made any sense.
Crazy.
Why would regulators approve a vehicle that required a 5G subscription? What happens when you run out of range? Has anyone not used these networks and noticed that they're not the most reliable things
even
in the
if
world?
You're in a city, what happens if the network is down? Do you come to a screeching halt?
Yeah, that's what I've always wondered. Like the 5G was always going to be an add-on. I mean, we're seeing a similar thing with like the voice assistants, right? Alexa's unit, $10 billion now, I think, something like that. It's lost, and there's a sense that like people thought it would be a good idea, but it doesn't mean there's a business model there. And I got a big laugh the last time I was talking about how next year I plan on just driving, or not even driving. I'm going to be in cars running around the city while robotic surgeons fix me up in autonomous vehicles. Like, I'm excited for that future. It's ridiculous.
I'm excited to watch you get an operation. This is great.
Yeah, we'll stream it live. Yeah. Anyway, Kim, it's a good question. Maybe I should just chill out. but it's upsetting to me, and it's indicative of how little respect we get, right? I mean, in this field, like it's just not even worth knowing how broadband works or things
It
like
does
that.
show you what all the advertising on 5G has done. They've convinced the world of this nonsense, right?
Yeah.
And yes, 3G is all being turned down, so everyone's losing their OnStar.
Yep. So we have a map from the FCC. It dropped on Friday, and I don't know. We'll talk about a bunch of it. I got a little graphic here that will pop up when we get to it. But I just have to say, like, I feel like it happened exactly the way I thought it would, and I think probably y'all too. Kim, any surprises?
Are you just taking credit that you might be right? And first of all, did Travis leave because the maps came out before
Yes.
2029, so he had to be proven wrong?
I don't know if we call these maps out, but no,
Yes.
I think Travis is probably picking up a magic wand or something.
I don't think anything surprised me about these maps. It's very interesting to look at the maps and see all of what's happening, who's served, who's not served. I looked at my
Everyone's
location.
served.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
looked at my location. I have 10 service providers. I have 3 can offer gigs to my house alone. It's interesting, but it is interesting. I thought this was interesting. Is like if you go to say Google Fiber, it's under Alphabet, and then you have to click down to Google Fiber. And
Yeah, what's even worse if you're USI or
Yeah.
Utopia
Yeah.
or Sonic. All the good companies are laid in the alphabet.
yeah, and you don't
Comcast
even-
and Charter are right up there at the top.
Well, you don't even know what they sound or like what their parent company is because what is it Starlink or Star something Holdings for Starlink? It's
Yeah.
You don't even know who you're looking at if you don't dig deeper into it. But it is quite interesting to see everybody's served. Nobody needs broadband. That is what we officially figured out today.
Right. So I guess we can probably disband this podcast because it's
I
kind of
think Travis wanted to do that. Travis?
Sorry, I had to step away. My 5G coffee machine just arrived, so yeah, pretty excited about it. So,
Yeah, no, it's going to be
there
terrific.
is
And
no toasters, but everything else, and it's $5 a month to run my new coffee machine. So hopefully it'll be worth it.
It's worth
Oh,
it, man.
Yeah, I sent Chris the FCC map, and it was all blue, and I said, "What are we talking about here?" Apparently, this is solved. I don't know.
if it was if it was a Republican administration, you think the map would be all red to show that everyone was served?
Wow.
Yes, Chris. Yes, that's
Yeah.
the reason. Yeah.
Well, we might as well bring our guest on now. We've kind of exhausted this topic.
Yeah.
Oh no, we haven't. So let's pop this up, right? So like this is the issue, right? When I say yes, I'm taking credit. So this is my home. This here is what we're seeing. I can get if you look on the right, this is a slide I just put together for an event. But if you look on the right, the FCC is telling me I can get Nextera Holdings LLC, and I don't know why it's listed twice, but Nextera in 2 different rows tells me I can get 1,000 megabits symmetrical of their unlicensed fixed wireless. So I was like, cool, I will try this. I would pay a few $100 just to demo it for a few weeks to see how it's going. And so I looked at their website and I poked around, and this is how bad it was. Travis couldn't even find this pricing, but I found their pricing after going through, like, give me a quote. And it's a little bit different what they're telling me on their website than what they told the FCC. You'll look there that like the good deal, if you're looking for that beefy 3 megabit a second symmetrical connection, if you commit to a 3-year term with them, it's only $125 a month. It's 666 times off what they said it would be. Is that right? Yeah. No, I got that wrong. I can't even do math now. It's a fraction of what they said it would be, 333 times off of how fast they said it would be. But it's a nice $125 a month, so I could pay a lot more and get a lot less. So this is exactly what we expected. The FCC says, hey, give us your fake data and we're going to be cool with it. We're not going to penalize you. And so companies gave them their fake data. I'm going to do a challenge. Does anyone want to bet how long it takes for this to come down, if it ever comes down?
Well, you can't challenge this yet. You can't challenge whether they're there. That's next year. You can only challenge the fabric right now.
So I was looking through it. I didn't do enough. So you can't even challenge this fake data right now.
Not yet. That's next year's challenge.
Only location data right now.
Only
Yes,
location data.
we have had in the past 4 days since he's been out, we've had 4 challenges of our data, and they've come here internally at Team Utopia. One person tried to sign up 5 years ago, and we built out his neighborhood since then, and now he could get service, but he challenged it because he didn't know that for when he signed up or tried. So we're seeing them come in. I mean, we're seeing challenge data come in from our viewpoint as well already. I don't know if you have.
And you're responding to it already.
Yeah, we're responding to it immediately.
Did
No,
you respond by giving him a phone call to be like, hey, dude, like literally, I'll sign you up right now?
We're working on that. We're working to make sure we have the contact information. But yeah, no, we're going to do that. But I didn't know, because as a small organization, we've had 4. But how is Comcast handling these? Are they responding to every single one of them that are coming in?
Well, let me modify what I said. You can't challenge that yet. The FCC is just forwarding them on. The FCC is not going to look at those at all. The FCC is only looking at the fabric challenges. They will forward those on to ISPs. The ISPs are not required to respond at this point.
No, what I want to do is
the official challenge starts next year, where you can actually really make a change as a resident. So,
what I would like to do is to, do some local organizing and just call them every day to try and sign up for it. Just flood their lines and like get my neighbors to all flood their lines constantly and be like, we're ready for the gig until they take it down.
I think you need more of a life, Chris.
Yeah. Chris is a little angry today, right? So yeah.
You said
I would guess, Chris, that they have. My guess is they have your entire county claim as gigabit too, not just your neighborhood.
No, there's a few spaces.
Yeah,
there's a few, like they have circles on the map that they're very nice, perfectly circular circles. Travis and I we're enjoying them.
Well, that's how radio propagates, perfectly in a circle.
Yes, circle.
Mhm.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Yeah. Doug, do you have any idea when in 2023 we're expected that the FCC will be seriously trying to evaluate
They haven't.
what's
They
actually out there?
haven't. They haven't said yet, but there will become a. This is sort of a practice. They're testing the platform.
So,
but there will come a time when that's a serious thing, and you have to. There will be mandated responses and blah blah blah. But they haven't defined that yet.
So am I overreacting? I mean, like, should we have had lower expectations for the FCC data?
You're not overacting at all, because we all said this a year and a half ago. There's still no rules about reporting any speeds you want. There's no penalty for this company for say they have gigabit there. There's no penalty at all. So why would they not do it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like I think I heard somewhere that until you put any penalties on people who are falsifying the data, that you're going to see this happen over and over again. So why did we think it would be different this time?
Yeah, I didn't.
Now, I will say that some of the ISPs cleaned up their act. I was looking at CenturyLink stuff, and one of my clients, before this mapping, they had claimed 25.3 in the whole rural area. Now they claimed 0.2 megabytes per second. So they got honest. So this mapping round, some of the ISPs got honest. And
Yeah.
Before, the CenturyLink data was making it hard to get grants there. Now it's pretty easy. So. Yeah.
The question here from Stephanie Jane Edwards is the 13th is the deadline for the fabric challenges in order to
Yes.
affect the beat allocations. So January 13th, if you want, this is where, if you're in a rural area, you better be sure that we have good data on the available areas. So if we looked at Minneapolis over the weekend while I was at this event, and it looked to me like Minneapolis was like at least the Cedar Riverside area and the Seward neighborhoods. It looked like, it had Travis's data up there. It looked like it was pretty accurate, except for this Nextera crap. Then we looked at some rural areas, and they were just missing a bunch of places.
Missing a bunch of places. That's what I'm seeing in rural areas. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what matters for the bead. So.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, like that's the hard part, right? I mean, CostQuest is trying to do something too fast. They were given too little time to do it. The FCC had no idea. There's no way the FCC could have known before 2022 that it would be important to map this data ever. So they rushed this contract through with CostQuest. CostQuest is doing the best they can. At the end of the day, like they're gonna make out as like bandits, regardless of how well they do, and it doesn't really matter that much. The whole public's gonna be trying to correct the data set.
Here's my cynicism. The worse they do, the more they'll make.
I think that's accurate. And this is where, I mean, I'll just say, like, I feel like the message that we're trying to get out there is that we need local governments to start trying to collect this data somewhat, but really states need to get serious about this. States cannot count on the federal government to get this right. If states care about making sure everyone has high quality access, they need to hire a GIS person or people. They need to, they need to be mapping this. They need to be tracking it on their own. And I did an interview with Dr. Tamara Holmes, who is running the beloved program in Virginia that is doing a good job. And we talked about this. It's going to come out on Tuesday on the Community Broadband Bits feed. So I would check that out for her recommendations on how states should do this. But states need to take it seriously.
Well, there's a much bigger issue, Chris. I work with a lot of rural counties, and about a third of the ones that I work with don't even have GIS. Not everybody has it. How are you going to challenge this map when you don't even know where your places are? Or some of them have a very high level GIS where years ago they plotted the plots of the land, but they don't have the houses located on them. So those folks can't challenge these maps. They don't have the slightest idea where anybody is.
Well, that's where they need to develop local.
So where did CostQuest get the data for those counties? I mean, those counties don't even have their own data. So
well, they would have combined as best they can satellite maps, tax records, anything. Like a lot of cases, they didn't have it, and
because we know you can certainly see every house that's underneath of a big tree, right?
Well, they have on the order of, I mean, obviously it'd have to be a small house under a very large tree, but they have.
Oh, you've never been in Appalachia. Under 50 trees, yes. So,
well, you didn't pluralize it, so.
okay.
But the CostQuest guy, Jim Stegman, he's been at multiple events I've been at, and he's under fire. And I'm frustrated in that I don't think that the way the FCC has worked with them, is good for public policy. I don't blame him for that, and he's under a lot of fire, but like they're doing the best they can with a very tall task. They have like on the order of 20 different sources of information that they consult for this, apparently. But this is the sort of thing that should have been done previously, and it should be federated in the sense that ultimately we should be pushing it down through the states, through the counties, and down. We should be having broadband action teams at the local level where they care about this, who are checking the data, and they're the ones with the local knowledge. They should be checking the data, and there should be a system. This is why you don't wait till the last second to do your homework, right? I mean, like some of us went through school, like,
But those folks aren't really allowed to use the data properly. They can look at the map, but they can't really do anything with it. So they don't have a license. Yeah.
Well,
broadband committee has no power here. So
go ahead, Kim.
But I think it's really cute, Chris, that you think that if this goes down to the cities and the communities and all these very well-intended broadband folks, that this would change the outcome, or it wouldn't be politicized in a different way and there wouldn't be lobbying. I think that you're going to have this no matter who is really administering the map creations.
Maybe some of us just believe more in the good old red, white, and blue.
Oh, you're pivoting to be so positive now. I get
No, I think, Kim, you're making a really good point. The way I think about things is I want to think about, like, when I try to do something, I figure I'm going to fail, right? Not that I'm going to miss the target by 100%, but if I'm going to miss it by 20% or 10%, if I'm going to be honest, where do I want to miss? And how do we want to miss? And I think we should set things up so that when they fail, that they fail in a way that we can deal with. And I think if these maps were failing based on communities that didn't participate and didn't get active, that is a reasonable way to go about it, so that when they complain, we say, we had a process, you didn't partake in it, and now there's steps where you can join it and we can figure out how to make it work. But like, it's open to you, as opposed to failing the way the Federal Communications Commission has failed year after year, which is, we're going to try something stupid, and when it doesn't work, too bad for everyone. It doesn't work out well.
you do realize these counties have no idea this challenge is going on.
Well,
None.
I think in Washington they do, and in Oregon they do, because we have local efforts, right? And I mean,
Yes.
so I was just working with folks in very rural counties in Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi over the weekend in Birmingham. We all came together in Birmingham, and some of them were county commissioners, and they're out there learning about this because they recognize that it's important, and they're going to go back and educate others. And it's a process that will be worked through. But yeah, no, there's what, 3,000 counties across the U.S., more or less, and probably 2/3 of them are not yet aware of what this process all means. And that's a failure of philanthropy. It's a failure of government. It's a failure on a lot of levels. So, I mean, I think we beat it to death. Any last comments?
I'm just surprised there's actually a map. So we'll just leave it at that,
But Is there? I mean, like it's the same data as before. It's just that like we have a different way of getting to the same wrong information, right? Like, I mean, are we supposed to be enthusiastic about this? Doug doesn't know, right? Doug, you said you don't even know how to use this data yet.
We can't we can't use it in the same traditional way because the data sets are so much larger that it's going to take some amazing computing power just to process these things. Yeah. So right now they're not very easily usable. We'll all figure that out. But
Chris, nothing a few 100 million more can't solve. I mean,
True.
seriously, come on.
the FCC needs to buy me a commercial.
I like when Chris
server.
is so surprised.
Yes.
So, and apparently Minnesota, I can only speak for Minnesota, has had a map forever.
I mean,
that's how they've been funding their program.
well, they have a map that's more or less the same as the FCC data. It's not.
No,
it's not
it's
great.
tweaked a little here and there. It's
Well,
better.
I mean,
Well,
it's
yeah,
better than the
more
FCC
or
map.
less.
yeah. But I mean, map's good. I guess I just feel like there's broadband everywhere. Just look at the map.
Doug, you going to take him up on his offer?
His offer.
Yeah, Ruben has a Mac Mini that they're not using.
I don't think so.
I mean, this is something where I'm going to be talking with Christina on our team more about it, and I'll be we'll be talking about this again in coming days on the Community Broadband Bits feed, or maybe again here. But you know, I think this is where we thought we would be, and we'll see where it goes, how we can correct this data. But I would guess that in January or February, I'm still going to be able to get unlicensed gigabit fixed wireless to my house, and probably people will be annoyed at me on Twitter, if it's still around, for casting doubt on the ability of fixed wireless to give me a gigabit in my house, even as I can't get it. Go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to say, but they are pretty. They are pretty maps. And we
They're
have
pretty.
that. So, I mean, from a marketing person, you really have to look at the aesthetics of the maps and the usability. The site hasn't gone down. You have to look at the positives.
Yeah, no, that is good. That's a good point.
I
And
also,
that's,
I
it's
was
not a
also
joke.
very impressed that Kim has 10 choices of ISP at her house.
I was just going to ask that. How many ISP choices do you
Well,
guys
no,
have?
those. So let's be clear. Kim has 10 network choices. She has ISP choices for more than 30, right?
I
Because
do not, because I
She's
don't
not on.
you're not on Utopia. Oh, killing me. That's right. I
How
forgot.
many water choices and power choices do you have at your house?
You know, I've never checked, but thanks for asking. I was
Curious,
hoping there would be a map for that. Though.
Yeah. Where's the map? Oh, no. There's only one.
So let's go through a quick topic, and then we're going to bring Mike out. The quick topic is Cable One email. I was wanting to talk about this before. We got this leaked email. Accidentally sent it. Cable executive sent it out to John Chambers, and then we helped to get shed some light on it. The cable company that is squashing the opportunity for East Carroll Parish in Louisiana to get this better connection, which is appealing it in court. A cable company that can barely keep this network up, from what we can tell, over the course of a week. They are saying, no, we've already provided the service in all these areas. And then they have an internal email in which they say that basically the number one issue that they face as a company, like the most important issue they're dealing with right now, is challenging municipal overbuilds in preventing them from getting funding, which is it's a remarkable statement.
Well, that's telling the truth.
Yeah, I mean, this is the same company that I was complaining about before. They're the ones that took the stake in what is that company? Ziply. They took a multi-million-dollar stake in Ziply when they should be improving their networks to make sure it works for longer than a few days at a time. Instead, they're buying like, ownership in networks that actually do work. That's remarkable.
Well, that'll allow them to shed their own networks and then get a share of Ziply's profits, I guess.
So, I mean, I don't know if you're, Kim, did you have any reaction to this? I mean, like, you're looking at it from AAPB, like, yeah, that's what we know is happening.
No, I mean, this is happening. We know they're being attacked. Municipal broadband is a very big threat to status quo. And it's not municipal broadband because Connection has a model in which the community owns it, and then they use Connection as the operator on it. But this doesn't surprise anyone. We knew these conversations were happening. It was just because somebody typed in the wrong thing, in which I have never done, Chris, in which I accidentally sent Chris a weird text message the other day. I've never.
We said weird. You questioned if we were friends.
To be, I
Yeah, I
thought
sent that same one.
Did she ask you if you and I were friends?
No, I asked you, yeah.
okay, to be fair, he asked me if he wanted to, like, he just wrote breakfast when we were in the same conference city, and I thought he was my cat sitter, so I said, for Ruthie, my cat. So yes, I was a little confused.
No,
But
and then she wrote, sorry, I thought you were my friend.
Okay, that's awesome.
But yes, I don't think this shocks anybody. But the poor person who typed in the wrong email address,
So
what happened to him or her?
apparently there were other people who were on that email chain that didn't share the email with us. I don't know if they were afraid that they might be like actually violating a law in doing so, but that person included a bunch of their opposition apparently in that invite.
Oops.
Yeah, seriously. It gives you a sense of the competence at Cable One. It's about what we expected based on the way their network operates. So yeah.
Well, what's most surprising to me is that an executive would write a nasty email to anybody about anything. That's what phones are for.
So let's bring on Mr. Mike Dunn from Fiberize. Mike is the Senior Manager of Funding and Regulatory Affairs at Fiberize, and someone who is pretty great in person. So let's really test him and try to give him a hard time here over the videos. Welcome, Mike.
Let's not. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
So at a time when we were asking, is Texas really going to apply for this? When Governor Abbott had made a cryptic comment about whether they were going to have to BEAD money, I was there in a room with Mike and I made that comment. And I think within a few hours, Mike's like, yep, they're applying. And you had it. So you have a good relationship with folks in these state offices. You're checking out what's going on. Let's just start with what Fiberize is and what your role is in terms of keeping track of these state offices.
All right. Fiberize, basically, as our name implies, we're a fiber optic networking consultant. We do everything from design through engineering, construction, and we'll even help an electric cooperative, let's say, operate a network if they need time to ramp up from an operational capability. The company actually started not just for broadband, but also for fiber networking on the grid modernization side. So we worked with electric cooperatives, municipalities. We do have one project with an investor-owned utility, an IOU, but our bread and butter is co-ops and munis on the fiber networking side. And recently, in August, we were acquired by Entrust Solutions Group, and we're looking forward to getting some additional expertise in the smart grid arena. So we're excited about that. And as for what I do, I spend a lot of time reading, trying to understand what's going on in the funding universe. I ran the RDOF consortium that we put together under Fiberize, and that was an education in and of itself. So
you're the opposite of Travis in some ways. Travis reads all this stuff and says, "Oh, hell no." And then you look at it and you think, "I see a path." So tell us about the path that you see right now with BEAD, when the rest of, at least the people on this call, are looking at it and saying, we're afraid a lot of folks are going to be scared off by some of the requirements and things like that.
So, yes. I don't disagree with some of that. I've been spending in the last couple of days actually going through the Department of Energy's funding opportunity announcement for their GRIP program, which is been advertised as a phenomenal opportunity for electric utilities to get into grid resiliency, grid modernization, smart grid, innovation, all these things. And as you read through and you get past the nuggets of here's how much money it is, this is what you're going to have to do. This is the reporting. These are the obligations. So there is an aspect of that. But obviously, from our side, we're looking at ways to help our cooperative and muni clients be successful. And for me, the biggest catch really is the states, because this is a new way of getting funding on the street, right? The historical gripe has been, it's all the feds. The feds are telling us what to do. They're telling us how much money we can have, where we have to spend it, and so on. So to their credit, the feds have now said, all right, well, we're going to give you the money, states, and within the umbrella of the guidelines, you get to decide what to do with it. And that is bringing a whole different set of challenges to the table. States are ramping up broadband offices all over the country. You've got national consultants being hired by the states to help them navigate all of this. And I think it's added a layer of difficulty that nobody expected.
Travis, do you have a question?
I'm just curious who's going to go after it, and then what are the costs, to operate this program. Last I heard, you had to have a very large letter of credit. We don't know if these funds are taxable or not. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we know that they are taxable, and we're hoping they won't be in the future.
Oh, they are taxable. Oh, fabulous.
Yeah,
okay.
we know that.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and then what are all the rules? I mean, I assume the Buy American thing's still top on there. So not sure where you're going to get all the parts and pieces at. So I don't know. I'm just always curious who's actually going to go for it.
Yeah, there's absolutely still some major issues, and all of those that you mentioned are still up in the air. I know there's moves afoot on the Buy America waiver. I know, and Chris knows, I'm sure, that there's a bill proposed to make this funding non-taxable. There are operators out there in these states that want to build a network, and if they can align themselves with the Davis-Bacon rules, if they can do the I think it's Justice 40 compliance, if they can do the quarterly reporting, they're going to look at these things, and some of them are just going to say, you know what, we're going to deal with all that stuff as it comes up. This is money that we can get right now to get sustainable high-speed broadband to our communities. So I think there's going to be some of that. I think you're just going to have some operators that are, to coin a phrase, it's going to say, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. And, the states have to give their initial plans and final plans. The whole BEAD timeline is very convoluted. And frankly, a reasonable estimate, excuse me, is that nobody's going to have any of this money until 2024 anyway. So we've got some time to figure those things out.
So, hey, Doug, are your customers having a hard time getting traditional financing, be it senior lending or mezz or any kind of
it's tightening up tremendously. Yeah.
So
I mean, as soon as the interest rates went above 5-6%, it's getting real ugly out there. And so, yeah, it's getting real tight real fast. The bigger question is, do they even want it at those rates? Now you're taking a chance on taking a high interest rate loan. You're making a bet that you can refinance it in 3 or 4 years because you cannot afford that rate for the long run. So, but some of the places you borrow from will make you hold it 10 years first.
Well, that's interesting. I would say that
Yes.
we can see, Travis is, I would say that my impression is you think that this inflation is here to stay. And if you believe that, then getting the 5 or 6% while you can, you'd want to rush into that before we're stuck with 7 and 8 for a longer term, if that's what you really believe.
Yeah, but at $100 a month internet, you can absorb these interest rates.
Yeah.
At current rates, you can't. So you have to either shrink your build, which is what we're doing. I don't know what Kim's doing, but you shrink your build and try to harvest out of your current area, or you look to some of these government programs. I don't know, but does that add more cost, Doug, than it does saves you actually any money? I mean, we're
Well,
saying,
you have to do the math because he just mentioned that some of these hurdles, like if it's really taxable and if you really have to pay, and you have to pay Dave and Baker's wages and all that stuff, it could
yeah.
be that that's just as expensive as getting the grant. So it's a case by case, and you got to do the math. The one that we didn't mention that worries me is that at least half of the places I've looked at need more than a 75% grant.
Mhm.
And so that puts them into this category that none of the states have told us how it works, which is the high cost places. And that those are going to be really hard to make work. This money actually looks pretty attractive if you only need a 40% grant. I just looked at a county that only needs 40%. They can make this work. This money is more than enough for them to get funded. But if you need an 85% grant, this is going to be tough money to get out of here.
Well,
So,
Mike, that's one of the things I'm curious about because I feel like some of your clients, particularly the electric co-ops in the rural areas, I feel like they're going to be in areas where a significant amount of the people they want to connect are going to be high enough that the state will allow for alternate technologies
right.
where they don't have to only do fiber because the cost is beyond what the state will decide is too much. But the electric co-op will want to use fiber. So it's going to be kind of interesting. Have you gamed that out at all and try to figure out how they will wrestle with that?
No, we haven't really. We've looked at some fixed wireless technologies, and we're still on the fence about integrating that into our portfolio. We've got some expertise at the company that has that background, so that's an effort that's underway right now. But especially out in West Texas, you've got a lot of really low density co-ops out there. I mean, we've been fortunate to operate in mostly what we call the SEC states, the Southeastern Conference, from a sporting perspective. And the majority of our clients, their projects cash flow without funding. So that makes my job a little bit easier because if I can get them some funding, I'm like, they smile and pat me on the back. And, if I don't, then I'm a bad guy, but their project still works.
So Kim, I'm curious if you have any questions. I know Mike also is doing a bunch of public-private partnership type things, and I'm sure you've evaluated similar things.
No, I mean, I was just going to say, I'm sure even if they don't get the funding, they're still going to pat you on the back because you're getting them away to fiber, right? At the end of the day, this money is out there. We know it's out there, but it's almost just finding ways to be creative to get it built. I mean, I think what Mike is doing is, I think it's really kind of impressive to look what you guys are doing and what communities you're working with to get there. So I have no questions today, Chris. Don't be shocked about that.
Well, I have one more. There's also a defensive issue here. If you're an electric co-op and you don't go after this money, somebody else is going to win it for your service area.
That's right.
And that's not at all comfortable. I mean, even if they win it for fixed wireless, you've got a built-in competitor when you could have had it as your own. So it's a real poker game here.
But okay, Doug, if you look at the maps, there's not the scale to build out that are underserved or unserved with this money. So they really
not the map that got published.
Well, you can. I mean, let me give Mike a chance to respond to. Let me give Mike a chance to respond to that. But then I'm going to come back to what we know about the number of unserved locations based on some data crunching that Mike Conlow did. We'll talk about that in a sec.
Well, I think that, from my perspective on that question is, that was a huge issue in RDOF. When we were running our RDOF consortium, we saw through the bidding results that a lot of your, what I would call tier 1 and tier 2 carriers were bidding strictly for defense. And it was absolutely part of the strategy we used with our consortium. It's like, You know, we had an electric cooperative that had a lot of unserved or underserved areas, and we just told them, if you don't bid, somebody else is gonna, you know. So now achieving your take rate is going to be even harder because you're going to be actively competing against more people. And I think RDOF in general, the term I used the other day, kind of woke the bear. We did see Charter and a couple other folks in RDOF, but from what we're seeing at the state level, you know, Charter, Comcast, these guys, they're coming hard for this money. And that's another decision that, you know, co-ops, munis, et cetera, are going to have to make. Is like, are we ready to stand up and go toe to toe with these guys?
Right. The data based on, you know, what Kim had just said, I feel like particularly when talking about the SEC states, you know, talking about like basically Arkansas and southeast of there, you know, you're looking at like according to Mike Conlow's, he looked at the data where you ignore all the blue stuff, Travis, that was from fixed wireless that is unlicensed, and you ignore all the satellite stuff. And you come up with, you know, in Arkansas, you're looking at 20% of the locations don't have 25 by 3, 20% in Mississippi, you know, like in the teens and some of these other states. And this is based on probably a subset of the locations, right? Because like in some of these areas, you might have 20% more locations than are on the map. So, you know, there's substantial areas in here, because this isn't like, you know, Iowa, where we have a lot of local companies that have made investments. This is AT&T territory. It's a green field because AT&T never bothered investing anywhere near there. So it's a different business case, I think, in some of these places.
Well, let's put your 20% into perspective. The county seat has a cable company and nobody in the rural area has it. That's how you get to 20%. The actual map looks really bad for rural folks, unless they happen to have co-ops or independent telephone companies who have built. Otherwise, I work for counties. There's only the cable company and none of the rest of the county
So-
has any good broadband.
But let me put this to Mike then. So Mike, based on what Doug just said, I would agree with him, but I would say it's actually a good story. Like the county seat will pay for itself and help the overall density. You probably pull 70% take rate in there because that cable company sucks. It's a cable one type company generally. And you can build that as part of your build plan without a subsidy. And then you get some subsidy for the rest of the area. And it's hard work, but it'll work. I mean, that's what I'm hearing from you, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely right. I mean, the cooperatives are generally outside those areas, and they're going to want to build in their own membership territory first. But, you know, we've had several that have, you know, been successful with initial builds, and they meet with the boards, and the boards say, you know what, this is kind of a cool thing. We should look at branching out a little bit. And some of them are doing it, and they're being successful.
And this is where my intervention has been to work with some of these counties to say, look, I'm not asking you to build your own network. I understand you have major challenges, and that would be perhaps a bridge too far. But when it comes down to it, the state government might be having to choose between a local electric co-op that you have a good relationship with and a company like AT&T or Charter. And first of all, you need to tell the state that they have to give you a chance to put your thumb on the scale for which one you prefer. And then you need to make sure that you actually weigh in on that one. And so that you have a fighting shot of making sure that money is well spent. That, I think, is the best we can do under this environment. I don't know if anyone thinks if there's a better strategy than that.
It's the only strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you got to say something we're going to disagree with.
Yeah.
well,
You were so angry at the beginning of this show, and now you're all calm and like peaceful. We don't know how to handle this.
I mean, I can't be a rage monkey 100% of the time. I mean, I'll try and work myself back up here at the end.
All right. Can I ask a question though? How realistic is the ongoing viability of these networks that get funded? If you're going to have this Swiss cheese of areas that have historically not been served, and you're not able to get into the county seed where, you know,
You are able to get in. You would
but
build
you're
that.
not able to use any of this money. You're only able to use this money to go out and so you're going to end up with a Swiss cheese network that isn't contiguous. How viable is for these networks to survive?
They're pretty viable. The question is getting the money up front and paying for the interest. The actual revenues on the network will more than cover the operating cost. It's the matter of covering this upfront debt.
You think so?
You're
'Cause
going to get
what-
80, 90% penetration rates eventually.
Understood that.
areas.
But what's your financial burden? Are you 50% of the cost, 60% of the
Oh,
cost?
right now, since interest rates went from 3 and have doubled and might triple, interest rates will kill you. Even if
Well,
you
Mike,
put
how
in
do
a-
you
even if you put
react
in
to
a
that?
20% matching, the interest rate will kill you. So
Say again.
How do you react to that, Mike?
Well, historically, we're seeing our co-ops be successful, and that's having a solid plan. And I guess you could say, we cherry pick a little bit. I mean, our preference is to work with co-ops and munis whose projects cash flow, and that's on a very conservative take rate of maybe 40%. But we're
I don't know why
seeing,
your audio just cut out, Mike.
Mm-mm.
I hear him. It's you.
I hear him. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Or was it me?
it
Yes,
is.
you.
We lost the host of the show. We're
All
going.
right, Travis, you're in charge.
All right, here we go. All right, Mike. So if we're gonna raise, so let's say
Continue,
we're gonna
please.
set up Mike Broadband, right? And
Yeah.
we're gonna do it in some unserved rural community. And
Mhm.
let's say our project cost is $10 million. I don't know, just making up a number. What
Okay.
percentage of that are we gonna be able to get from BEAD? What percentage of that do we have to get from traditional lenders? And is the BEAD dollars forgiven so we only have interest and operating expense on the remaining portion? How does it all work? Is what I'm curious about.
So, in the co-op world, most of them leverage their existing assets and go through CoBank or one of the other rural funders, and they just get whatever money they need, and then they amortize that over the life of the project. So you could say 3 to 5 years they're cash flow positive, and that's with no funding. So the boards are looking at that and looking at the long view, and that to me is kind of one of the positives of the rural co-op market, because they don't look at it from the standpoint of, well, gosh, we're not going to cash flow until year 5. That's terrible.
Well, who's liable for the debt in that model?
The co-op typically.
Co-op.
The co-op, and the co-op is owned by the taxpayers or owned by?
Well,
And
the
then
members.
customers.
It's
Yeah,
a
customers.
membership cooperative, so
Okay.
so everybody's in. It's none of that stuff happens in a vacuum. It's all voted on by the membership and the board, and
Okay.
everybody's got to be on. They see the feasibility studies, they see the business model, they see, and they can sit and ask questions. Well, what happens if we don't get 40%?
You know
Well,
what
what
really makes me angry though?
You angry? What?
I just wanted to get in that direction. No, so I do think that it's important to understand, and Mike, I hope you'll correct me if I'm wrong. Same with Kim. The thing about the municipalities and the co-ops doing this is, Travis, you're asking about like cash flow and that sort of thing. And like these entities are basically like, we need to do this for reasons aside from making money, right? Like for them, if it throws off any cash after 5 or 10 years, hey, that's great. But fundamentally, like an electric co-op looks at this and they say, as long as this thing doesn't lose money, it's going to increase our electrical sales. And that's what matters, right? Is that making sure that we're not losing electrical demand in our territories, because that is an existential crisis for the co-op, because electricity in the electric system costs real money to make that the fiber system doesn't cost to make or operate. Like electricity costs real dollars as a system compared to fiber. And it's the same thing with cities, where they're like, as long as we can like not lose money at this thing, we need it for like bringing in jobs and improving property values, and that's what matters to us.
They're
And it's
doing it
just
for
a different
community
conversation
benefit.
when you're trying to make that work. So go ahead, Kim, you're gonna make me
Yeah.
what I said sound better, I think.
No, they're doing it for a community benefit. This is not for a money-making scheme. This is for, they're doing it not because they want to get into the broadband business, not because they want to do this. It's because it's good for their residents. It's good for their businesses. It's good for we're getting into the smart city applications and the smart home stuff, like Mike mentioned before. It is putting them in a place to be really ready for what the digital economy is going to be in the next 100 years. That's what they're doing it for.
And what percentage of these areas are covered by co-ops? Any sense? In the U.S., is it pretty small, or
half of the U.S. By geography, more than like between a half and 2/3 of the United States of the 48 states by geography,
Okay.
but on the order of like I want to say like 10% of the population, something like that.
Okay, so pretty good chunk then, right?
But not,
Yeah,
but
it's
not
like
all
all
the
the
co-op,
space
but
and
not
so
all
many
the
people.
co-ops are interested in doing broadband, so it's not everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's about 900 co-ops, and I think 200 or so are in the game right now. But like Kim said, honestly, from our perspective, based on how we approach this, a lot of times we're sitting down with a co-op and we're talking to them about how to make their electric grid more efficient. So we're running a fiber network so that the electric grid doesn't cost as much for them to run. And oh, by the way,
Mhm.
now that you have this fiber network, guess what? You can do fiber to the home. So even if the co-op doesn't want to get into broadband immediately, they have the option down the road because now they've put in the fiber network to manage their grid better and all of that. So
It's
Right.
about
Now,
being
now,
efficient,
Travis, one
too.
of the keys
Efficient in those
was,
areas with those
Go ahead.
co-ops.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't do it if they're efficient with their resources, because I'm assuming, I don't know a lot of co-ops, but it is that they don't have an unlimited amount of resources. So if they make that efficiency on the electrical side, it just makes a really good sense. It's the
Yeah.
same as cities putting a fiber ring in for all of their anchor institutions, and then building out a fiber to the home project later on, years down the road. The same concept.
yeah, and just on top of that is we're doing grant applications. Like we work with the Appalachian Regional Commission, so a lot of that is economic development focused. So we're looking at not only how many residents do you keep in the community, because now you have superior broadband and they can work remotely. They've gone off to college, and rather than stay somewhere else,
Mhm.
they want to come home. They like home, but obviously people like jobs too. So having that broadband increases their economic traction that way. But I use Alabama as an example because that's where I am these days. There's massive numbers of we've got Hyundai, we've got Toyota, we've got Mazda, we've got Mercedes, we've got and sure, there's tax incentives and all those other things, but we see that throughout the Southeast, companies want to locate there because of the low cost and the positive tax environment. But they're not going to do it if they can't get 10 gig connections or what
Hang
have
on,
you.
Mike, you need to say that louder because Chris doesn't always hear that. The positive tax incentives that are there.
I wasn't listening. No,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we really need to reinforce that. So
His
10
headphones
gig
broke again.
internet.
His headphones broke again. We lost him.
Yeah.
We can't hear anything.
This is the best episode ever. 58. All right. Well done, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm here all week.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about your hat?
Yeah.
Yeah, my hat. This is my Rocket City Trash Pandas hat. We're a farm team, I think, for the Angels. Speaking of Toyota, we play at Toyota Field here in Huntsville, and gosh darn it, I think we won the league last season. How about that?
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of talk when that name was chosen. I think all over the internet, there was some Reddit efforts to lean in that direction.
Yeah.
One last topic while you're here, Mike. Feel free to join in, but I want to talk about the broadband labels. Does anyone have any reactions to that? The FCC order is out. Travis has read 110% of it and says there's more that he hasn't finished reading yet.
Oh, I mean, I love it. It's only 85 pages to figure out what to do here. So.
Well, my comment on that, and I haven't really studied the label. I see the announcements and everything, but will the for-profit providers, I'll just use that term, meaning the
The biggest ones.
MSOs and all those guys, will they be allowed to use their advertised speeds on the labels? And if so, will that really change anything?
Well, there's a big question between being allowed and what they're just going to do, and FCC will have to try to stop them. They are not going to spill any beans unless they get brought to court. So, yeah.
Well, I think the cable companies largely do deliver. I mean, I think a lot of the speed tests suggest that the cable companies are delivering their advertised speed. It's been the DSL and the fixed wireless where I think it's been a bit more variable. They're more prone to congestion that's difficult to check. But I've been running speed tests and on an application that does them every hour and in a couple locations, and the cable company doesn't hit it all the time, but like a lot of the time they're pretty close. And then Travis's network pretty much always hits it. Like the average is very close to the advertisement.
Hey, what do you mean pretty much?
I mean, it's
No.
usually in the 950s, but you know,
Your tests are flawed. Where's it going to? Yeah.
Now, Chris, when you get out of the metro areas, though, and you get to the cable companies and the county seats, they are not hitting their marks. So,
no, that's a good point. I mean, so yeah, those cable companies that either haven't upgraded or they still have a lot of, I assume it's just a lot of stuff in the field that's intermittently fails, is where we're having those issues, right?
I think
Yeah.
we need to commend Ruben in the comments that he's actually saying Charter was honest.
Well, and Charter also does not have, I believe, bandwidth caps. And one of the things I found is I'm doing so many speed tests to keep a sense of what it looks like all hours of the day that I'm going to blow through my Comcast cap here pretty quick. And that kind of sucks.
they're going to have caps in 2024. They were prohibited to have them until then by an FCC agreement. So they're chomping at the bit to have them. They will have them nationwide 2024. So
Thanks. That's a good point to
I
know.
have a question for everybody. Are we ever going to get an FCC commissioner?
Yeah.
wait a
I
minute.
mean,
Well, there's
any-
got to be
any minute
another
now.
bet here.
I think we've got a great shot to get Gigi Sohn confirmed now, and I think that will be good. What I'm hearing is that, you know, I think there's some Republicans that may very well vote for her, even if we can't get the last Democrat. But I'm hoping that we will see it in December, not January. But I think Gigi will be our next FCC commissioner.
Chris is making his call. Chris is making the call. I can't.
So
wait.
yeah, let's put it this way. I will bet.
What? Hang on, I gotta hear this.
I will bet Travis that by the end of February, which is the time in which the FCC will have had to change the broadband definition, or I will lose the bet a second time, or double or nothing. It's like March 2nd or something like that. By that time, March 2nd or whatever day that is around then, Gigi Sohn will be the 5th commissioner on the FCC. She will have been confirmed.
Of what year?
Of 2023.
Oh, I'll take that all day. All right. Because I'm already going to win the speed. We're going to go triple or nothing on the speed definition, right? Hell, let's just do 8 or nothing by now.
You're just calling your shot, and Chris still has like 4 months to get there.
Well, you know, Chris has gone a little AFK this year. And for those of you that don't play video games, away from the keyboard. He hasn't been around ever since the chicken wings were coming my way. No Chris. So
No, we did the chicken wings one time, and while we did it, you agreed that we were going double or nothing because Travis. You have to know this about Travis. It physically pains him for me to buy something that for him.
He works for a nonprofit, and I've been told all my life that nonprofits, you know, they're all poor nonprofit, you know. Yeah, no, you can pay from now on, sir.
And then I show up in my Maserati, and I'm like,
yeah. Pretty rich nonprofit you're running there, son.
So that's my bet. And I Travis, I think if I lose, then I will consent to have you drive me across the country to an MLS stadium where we'll watch a game and we'll visit fiber networks on the way.
No. Anything other than soccer. I did that yesterday with that US. Oh, never again. Never again.
I don't believe you drive a Maserati. If you're a true nonprofit guy, you've got to have a Tesla in the garage. Don't you?
No, I'm going on vacation with my wife, and you cannot get an electric car really easily up here. And when we're down in the Arizona area, I plan to test drive one. And if we're able to line it up, I think I will actually drive our existing vehicle down to an event in Phoenix at the end of January and switch the car, sell that car, buy a new car, and drive that one home. Just to finally get that, I gotta say that nothing about the last week has made me like Qatar more or want to buy more oil. That is for sure. So,
So hold on, you're going to buy an electric car and drive it home?
no. This would be a plug-in hybrid. It would be the only way to make that work. I don't have that kind of time.
Yeah. Well, no, you can sit for 2 hours at the supercharger every 3 hours, so it's a lot of fun.
Right.
I did that one time, never again.
Yep.
Mm.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
So last
Yeah.
item, and if anyone has to go, Mike, I know we've had you on a little bit longer, but the last topic was it's something we talked about a little bit. It's the coming end of the fiber boom. We have a bunch of these companies, whether it's AT&T or Lumen, or whether it is Metronet or others, and they've talked about making these massive investments to expand their fiber holdings. They are making significant investments, but I think some of the analysts now think that with the increase in the cost of debt, that they will be falling short by 1 million locations or two. And the question is what should we be expecting in the near future in terms of all of this fiber investment? And despite the fact the federal government's going to be putting money out for the rural areas, what are you forecasting in terms of that sort of big private sector, private equity driven fiber network investment? Don't everyone speak at once.
Oh, I thought you asked Mike first.
From my perspective, again, we play both sides of the fence. So, it's not a pure broadband thing. I think for us, fiber has legs because of all the grid modernization and everything else that's going on. So from, a commodity perspective, I think fiber's another decade or two from, going into maintenance mode.
Yeah. So you see a lot of investment for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my take is that the really big guys are not using debt to finance this. So this has always been an equity play. This hasn't changed their story. Now you get to the middle-sized guys, and it very much might be a debt issue. So I don't really know where people like Frontier and Windstream are going to get the money from. But the bigger guys, it's pure equity anyway. So,
Kim?
I'm saying there's not going to be a slowdown.
yeah, I don't see it.
I don't see it. I'm going to take that shot. I feel like I might win a bet, unlike you, Chris. So I'm going to go for this shot.
There's no fun in that. Travis, if I understand correctly, more or less, you take all of the money that you make each year, as well as what you can raise to build as fast as you can the next year. And are you going to be building less because of that high interest rate, just out of a sheer number effect from the amount of money you can get?
Yeah, probably about 30% less per year, but we'll still do it every year. I mean, I think what you're going to see is the big guys will continue on. The medium-sized guys who, they'll probably slow down. I would say companies our size will reduce, but anyone smaller than us is going to get stopped dead in their tracks.
Right.
And I don't think you're going to see a lot of new people come in. So I think with all this federal dollars, it'll be the incumbents. I guess I never considered co-ops the incumbents, but I guess they could be because they already have an established footprint. They'll continue on, but you're not going to see Mitchell Internet starting up from scratch. It's just too expensive right now.
Well, that's where you'll get me, Travis. I'll finally say yes when it's too hard to do.
Yeah. And multiples are down. Multiples are down. Enterprise values are down on fiber networks right now.
Yeah, there won't be any big startups for a while.
No.
You should have sold yours, Travis, right when it was at its high over the summer.
What would he do? What would he do? Play pinball?
Yeah, all day. Yeah. No. It's good.
You have to finance my retirement too to have someone to hang out with.
Well, and always remember that there's not any real big, other than a few of the major metropolitan areas. There's still a ton of opportunity in this country.
Yeah.
So even if all the rural gets done and all the tier 3 cities get done, I mean, you could spend an entire lifetime building out LA. if you wanted to. And there's a ton of opportunity there to just battle the incumbent.
Well, that goes back to Chris's number. All the rural's 10% of the people. Everyone else lives in the cities.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, there's a lot of fiber to be built. So
lot. Now, unless you think 13G, which we've always said is the real big G, that's the problem. 13G is a real issue for fiber builders. And, as far as the toaster goes, that's a 17G, Chris. So, I think we're good right now with our little 5G project.
At that point,
Travis,
the
I got
five-
invited to a webinar for 7G already.
Did you?
At
Was
the-
it- well, here's what's so hilarious about Wi-Fi now. So there's Wi-Fi 7, which is in the 6 gigahertz spectrum, but they're not calling it that anymore. They're calling it 7G. They're trying to make it sound fancy. So I think I'm going to do that too. Forget 5G. Go with 7G. Kim, there's got to be some good marketing.
Doug, when you get invited to a 8G conference, when they can put it in the glasses, just let me know. I'll be.
Yeah. Yep.
No, I think
Well, you're the only one with big enough glasses to make it work. Though.
the challenge is that as we get here, the chips are going to be so small. We'll deal with quantum effects, and we'll be arguing about whether the chip is actually in the toaster or not. It'll just be, it'll be like a Schrodinger's chip kind of situation in a toaster.
Chip or is it the toaster? Huh?
I believe they'll just put the chip in us, and then all of our devices will work. That's my theory. So.
This has been fun. Thank you, Mike.
Hey,
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Some invaluable stuff here, Mike. Thank you. Low tax states attract business that have high quality broadband. Who would have thunk it, Chris?
Yeah, and I think that one of the things we see sometimes is that people that move to those states then move back to states like Minnesota, where they have they get more government services and things work a little bit better. We're looking at a $13 billion surplus right now in Minnesota because, despite being comparatively high tax, our economy is crushing the low tax states around us. So there's it's a mix. I'm not going to say there's no price to pay for having higher taxes, but I feel like it's a complicated situation that results.
I didn't think we would ever get out of this without an economic speak. Thank you.
Yeah,
we needed that. Yes.
Yes. And Gary makes a good point. Supply chain is still there.
Yep.
But.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't understand this. Like, I have yet to run into a person who's like, we had to stop this project or slow it down significantly because of supply chain. And I don't know if we're looking in the wrong places, but as we go to some of these conferences in the next year, I want to get a sense of this as we talk to people. Like I feel like everyone keeps saying we're finding a way to muddle through, as opposed to saying, yeah, we had to stop working.
Kim, are you having any problems getting bits and bobs?
I think it's still slow. I mean, but I agree with Chris. It hasn't stopped us, but you also have to be creative and you have to be strategic of how you're getting your supplies, and you can't wait till the last minute to order something you need in 2 weeks to get and expect to get it.
That's the big thing. You just got to be a lot more organized now than you used to be. Order a year in advance, you'll get it.
Well, I think from our perspective, to Travis's point, we've been very proactive about getting this supply chain in place so that, otherwise, I mean, how do you go sign up a new customer for a new build and you can't help them get fiber and material and the labor that can't put the fiber on the pole or in the ground without somebody to do it. So we're doing all right in that respect. We're not seeing any slowdowns at this point.
Yeah.
Yep. Wonderful. We're going to try and pull off another show. We'll compare some calendars here. I do think that I'm going to propose that we do a show that's going to be a big year-end blowout extravaganza the week of December 12th. So I don't know if we'll get in a show before then or not, but we will have one big show before the end of the year. And should be a good one. If you have ideas for it, feel free to send us notes and tell us what we should be doing.
Predictions for 23.
Get Gigi's son on here so we can ask her if she's going to be the next commissioner.
I don't know that she's going to accept that invitation,
God,
but
come on. This is a pretty famous thing here. I think you can do it. Come on, Chris.
I'll say that Gigi would be a heck of a guest because she does not dodge questions.
She does not. She does not.
Chris,
Yeah.
just drop Kim's name. It'll happen. So that's all you got to do. And hey, can we do one of those predictions for next year? I like when you make those big wild thoughts that don't come true. So that's my favorite.
Yeah, no, I think we should.
Yeah.
It just requires some time, and I think we'll try and work on that. So appreciate everyone coming out. It's a
Thanks,
busy
Mike.
time of year.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Happy
Yes,
to
thank
be
you.
here. Good to
Thank
see
you, Mike.
everybody.
And we will talk to you all again before the end of the year, before Santa comes down our chimneys. And hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving with family. This has been another fun episode of Connect This.